Today, we're going to tackle a huge question, one that pretty much affects all of us. What is the actual science behind motivation? Why do some people leap out of bed totally fired up for work, while for the rest of us, that snooze button is just way too tempting? Let's get into it.
So what really makes us work hard? It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer, well, it's a lot more complicated than you'd think. Is it all about the money? Is it passion? A sense of duty, maybe? Or is it something deeper? We are going to break it all down and build a complete picture, starting from the inside and working our way out.
All right, so to get us all on the same page, let's look at the official definition. See, motivation isn't just one single thing. It's really a mix of three key ingredients. Direction, which is, what you choose to focus on. Then there's intensity, which is how much gas you put in the tank. And finally, persistence, how long you can keep your foot on that gas pedal over time.
So where do all those forces, that direction and intensity, actually come from? Well, we're going to start deep inside the human brain, with the fundamental drives that are literally hardwired into us. You can think of these as our built-in internal engines.
This brings us to something called the four-drive theory. The big idea here is that our behavior isn't just random. No, it's guided by a handful of innate, universal drives that we all share. Think of them like the source code that runs our emotions and our motivations. Let's break these down real quick. First, you have the drive to acquire. This is our desire to get stuff, and not just physical things like a nice car, but also experiences or even status. Next is the drive to bond. That's our deep human need to connect with others and feel like we belong. Then, the drive to comprehend. This is all about curiosity, our need to figure things out and make sense of the world. And last but not least, the drive to defend. That's our primal instinct to protect ourselves, our family, our property, even our ideas.
And here is the absolute key to this whole theory. The most motivating workplaces aren't the ones that just throw money at people to satisfy that drive to acquire. No way. The best places create an environment where people can fulfill all four of these drives in a balanced way. They all have to work together. When they're in harmony, that's when we really feel engaged and motivated.
These drives also help us understand two different flavors of motivation. You've got intrinsic motivation. You know that feeling when you're doing something just because you love it? The work itself is the reward. On the flip side, you have extrinsic motivation. That's when you're driven by something external, like a bonus check or a fancy award. Both are powerful, for sure, but they come from totally different places.
Okay, so if those drives are our engines, how do we decide where to aim all that horsepower? That brings us to our conscious mind, and a kind of mental math we all do before we decide to really put in the effort. And this is what's known as expectancy theory. Now, I know it might look a little complicated on screen, but trust me, it describes a thought process you go through probably dozens of times a day without even realizing it. It's basically a 3-question quiz you give yourself that determines how motivated you're going to be.
So here's how the equation works. First, you ask yourself, if I really put in the effort here, can I actually pull this off? That's the effort to performance link. Then you ask, okay, and if I do pull it off, will I actually get the reward I was promised? That's your performance to outcome link. And finally, you ask the big one, how much do I even want that reward? That's called valence, and guess what? What we value is often tied directly back to those four drives we just talked about. If the answer to any of these 3 questions is a no, or even a meh, your motivation just falls off a cliff.
And the cool thing is, this gives us a practical roadmap for boosting motivation. If you want to strengthen that first belief that I can do this, you've got to provide the right training and tools. To strengthen the second link, the connection between doing good work and getting rewarded has to be crystal clear. And for the third part, the rewards themselves have to be things people actually care about. One size does not fit all.
Okay, we've talked about our internal engines and the mental math we do. Now let's shift our focus to the outside world. How can we actually structure our environment to supercharge motivation?
Turns out 2 of the most powerful levers you can pull are, in theory, super simple, but in reality, they're often really hard to get right. And they are giving people crystal clear goals and then giving them useful feedback on how they're doing.
But here's the thing, not just any old goal will cut it. The best goals are smarter goals. They've got to be specific, measurable, and achievable, of course, but also relevant to the big picture, time-framed with the deadline, exciting enough to actually get you engaged, and, this is a big one, regularly reviewed.
And feedback is the other side of that same coin. For feedback to be genuinely motivating and not, totally demoralizing, it also needs to be specific and relevant. It has to be timely, not 3 months later. It needs to come from someone you trust. and it's got to happen often enough for you to actually do something about it.
So we've covered our drives, our thoughts, and our environment. But there is one last, absolutely crucial piece to this motivation puzzle, and honestly, it's a deeply emotional one. Our powerful, innate need for things to be fair.
This leads us to something called equity theory. The best way to think about it is like a set of mental scales. On one side, we pile up all of our inputs, our effort, our skills, our time, our passion, and on the other side, we place all of our outcomes, our salary, any recognition we get, the interesting projects, all of it.
Just think about it for a second. Have you ever had that feeling, that pit in your stomach, when you just know you're putting in way more than you're getting back, especially when you look at the person in the cubicle next to you? Yeah, that feeling is real, and it is a motivation killer.
Because here's the kicker, we don't just weigh our own scales in a vacuum. We are constantly looking over at our coworkers' scales and comparing our ratio of outcomes to inputs with theirs. And when we feel like those ratios are out of whack, we feel this tension, this sense of unfairness.
And that tension, it forces us to do something to resolve it. Maybe we start putting in less effort, to balance the scales ourselves. Maybe we march into our boss's office and ask for a raise. Or if the unfairness feels big enough and nothing changes, we just decide to leave the situation entirely. So, as we wrap this all up, you can see that motivation isn't some simple switch you can just flip on or off. It's this complex, dynamic dance between our deep internal drives, the logical calculations we make about our efforts, and that powerful emotional need for fairness in the world around us.
And that leaves us with one last thought for you to take away. When you think about your own work, or maybe the team you lead, which part of this whole system needs the most attention right now? Is it about reconnecting with those core drives, clarifying the rewards, setting better goals, or is it about fixing a sense of unfairness? Finding the answer might just be the key to unlocking a whole new level of motivation.